Welcome to episode 2 of Broadcast Booth Stories from inside the headsets of play-by-play. I'm Brian Jensen, your host for the program and the play-by-play voice of Texas Tech football. The idea of this series is to get to know some of the voices behind the broadcasts that go on around our country on all types of sports and all types of activities. Obviously, with the college connection that I have, we will be hitting quite a few college voices, as well as some pro voices and others as we get going throughout this series. Really want to kind of set up this one for you because I'm really excited. This will be our first voice, our first play-by-play voice to join us on Broadcast Booth. Our first episode was with producer engineer of our broadcast so that you could get a little bit of a feel for what goes on in our broadcast booth and some of the technologies and those kinds of things. But our first actual play-by-play voice that joins us today, I thought it would be very appropriate to get this gentleman to join us because it is the voice of the most recent national championship team in college basketball. John Morris joins us on the show today. John, welcome.
Brian, great to be on with you. I appreciate the invitation. It's a hard act to follow following Steve Pitts, but I appreciate you having me on.
Well, we're showing your title there, Assistant Athletic Director for Broadcasting of Baylor Athletics. But I want to take that one off the screen and put this one on the screen because this is what we know you as, play-by-play voice of Baylor Athletics. And John, also want to let everyone know that you are also the Texas Sportscaster of the Year in 2019. Congratulations for that honor. And boy, it couldn't have gone to a better individual than John Morris.
Well, you're very kind, and that's old news. That goes back 2 years ago now. But I tell you what, that's a real honor because you know this. You think about this state, the state of Texas, and all the great broadcasters we have in this state. To be even on a list with any of those guys is a real honor. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Thanks.
Well, I understand that you actually were on the stage there with a guy I used to work with, Dale Hansen, who also was the sportscaster that year.
Yeah, that's true. It should read co-sportscaster of the year, Dale and I. So that was great, and it was funny the reaction here. Some people said, "Oh, you had to share it," and then other people said, "Oh, with Dale Hansen, wow!" And it kind of elevated the status by being on there with Dale. So it really is an honor.
No, I completely understand that, having worked with him for 10 years back in the way back in the old days, as it turns out now, right? But you are a guy that television and radio, and I mean just the broadcast gamut over the years. What of all of those things that you've done in the broadcast world has been your real exciting space?
Good question. I've loved it all. I really have. I've really been blessed. I graduated from Baylor. Radio, TV, film was the name of the degree at that time. That's changed a lot. Now it's film and digital media is the degree. So that is obviously the industry has changed. But I was already working at, as you remember, KWTX TV, Channel 10 here in Waco. I was already working there full time when I graduated and worked there for 15 years. And then had the great fortune to connect with Frank Fallon and started working with him in football in 1987. And then when Frank retired, I came to Baylor full time and have been doing play-by-play at Baylor full time since 1995. But what a great experience to work with Frank Fallon. I mean, there is no better learning experience than to work with that man.
Well, and I'm really glad that you brought that up early on because this is an experience that you and I have a little bit similar in that you followed a legend, Frank Fallon. You did have the opportunity to work with him, which I think is just, wow, what a tremendous opportunity that must have been because, I followed Jack Dale, the legend at Texas Tech, and unfortunately didn't have the chance to work with him prior to following him in the booth.
Yeah, and we didn't take that advice very well of not following a legend, right? Isn't that what they say to people?
That's exactly right.
But that opportunity for you was so great, and I love Jack Dale. I just think he was just a terrific man in 50 years doing that. Really appreciated the time that got to know Jack, and obviously Baylor Tech games to visit with him in passing. And then to work with Frank and then to follow Frank in this job was a real honor. Frank, in my mind, will always be the voice of the Baylor Bears. I mean, Frank Fallon is, and that goes back to the first year I worked with him, 1987. Craig Harper, Craig was our engineer in the booth, and Jerry Clemens in the back there was our producer. But that was the first year I worked with Frank in 1987. Young Slim John Morris there. But what a great experience to work with him. And I'll have this job, for a while. I'm the caretaker of this position, and then I'll hand it off to somebody else. But Frank is the voice of the Baylor Bears, and in my mind, always will be.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Jack. I mean, Jack did, all the sports, obviously, and was really known for football and basketball. But, just it's always, I always hear great stories. And, that's part of what we're trying to do here is to share some stories. And I'm sure there are just as many great stories, and there will be when whatever young whippersnapper comes up and follows you.
Right.
Hopefully that individual will have the chance to work with you prior. Is that the plan? I mean, I know I'm not I'm not trying to push you down the road, but is
Yeah,
that the
thanks.
plan that you're trying to set up?
There's no line of succession really in place right now. I hope to continue doing this as long as good health and good eyesight allows me to do it. I'm just finishing my 26th year here, and I really feel like I'm still getting started. I don't know if you feel this way, but you had the background in TV and then into radio, and I feel like I missed kind of. I mean, I was at Channel 10 for 15 years, and instead of doing that time, in radio. I got into radio, in 1987. So I feel like I'm just getting started, really. And I definitely feel like I'm learning and can be better every day. So I hope there's a lot of years left calling Baylor athletic events.
Yeah, totally agree with the comments you just made. Fortunately, I had the opportunity early on while I was still in school at Texas Tech to actually broadcast the JV games in
Oh,
the
yeah.
broadcast booth. Yeah, and that was an exciting moment. And then throughout the time I was at Channel 8 and Channel 5 here in Dallas in television, had some opportunities to do broadcasts of some SMU sports. So that was great. And then high school when I was in Beaumont, Texas prior to that. So, yeah, I mean, but you are so right. Just the ad lib side of the business. And there's always something that comes up that you probably aren't quite prepared for. And I think that's not only the excitement of it, but the learning curve that continues on, in what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And none of it's scripted, in radio and live play by play. It's the best, live television there is, these kind of half scripted real life shows that are on. There's nothing like sports. And I always say this, you're going to go to a game and you're going to see something in that game that you've never seen before. And that makes it fun. And the unscripted part of it makes it really fun.
Well, John, sit back for 1 second because you had never seen this
Shot
before.
clock is off. 15 seconds to play. Zags will back off. The Baylor fans cheer in Indianapolis. A season of joy ends with a national championship for the Baylor Bears. Baylor over Gonzaga in the title game. 86-70 the final score.
Well, that was awesome.
I love it. Let's just play it again. Let's play it on a loop. How about that?
Well, I actually ripped that off of your Facebook page, so people can certainly go to your Facebook page and hear that, and also a little bit more with Pat Nunley.
Yeah, and Pat and I, that's a great picture his wife Cassandra took right at the end of the game. And if you look at that picture, I mean, she did a great job. You see Final Four kind of right there between us, national champs up on the video board, and the confetti falling behind us. And I hope you can see in our faces the pure joy of just being a part of this team this year and being a part of a national championship. We loved calling those games, and I really love calling it with Pat. I've done games with Pat for 36 years, I think,
Wow.
and then full time every game since '95. So he and I really enjoyed this journey that ended with the national championship.
Well, and that's one thing. This was your first, right? Your first call of a
Yes,
national championship game. You don't call women's basketball, so weren't part of
right.
the basketball championship games. I know there is another sport which we're going to talk about in a minute, but your first major national championship call. Just the atmosphere around everything. Describe a little bit from a broadcaster's perspective. What all that was like.
It was unbelievable. I mean, professionally, it was definitely the highlight, of what I've been able to do, and I've been able to experience some really big highs, here at Baylor. The Heisman Trophy run with Robert Griffin III, and being there in New York City when they won the Heisman, that was really cool. That was in 2011, and that was so great to be a part of. And that's really been at the top of the list. People say, what's the greatest, best event you've ever been a part of at Baylor? And that was really top of the list. Been some huge wins, regular season, bowl wins, NCAA, Baylor to the College World Series. Here was our bowl game, a couple of years ago in New Orleans, the Sugar Bowl. That was great to get to the Sugar Bowl. There have been so many of those, but it's a national championship, Brian, a national championship for men's basketball. And don't let it slide by that Baylor won the Big 12 championship this year. Also, that is a huge accomplishment. And when Baylor beat West Virginia in Morgantown to clinch the Big 12 title, I think Pat and I were more emotional with each other that win than we were the night of the national championship, because that is a big deal to win a Big 12 championship. In this league how tough that is. And then the national championship, Baylor played so well throughout the tournament, won the two Final Four games by a combined 35 points. And really, there was no question who the best team in the country was at the end of the year. And Pat and I were along for the ride, and we really enjoyed it.
Well, John, that's a jealousy moment. I haven't had a national championship, haven't had a Heisman Trophy winner, and haven't had what you're seeing on the screen, which is part of all the follow-up that comes after something like that, and that is a parade.
Yeah, a parade in downtown Waco, which was really cool. The women have had that. The women have 3 national championships, and they've had a parade after all 3 of those, and it was very well attended. But I really think this sort of topped all those with the crowd that we had. And this is at the end of it, downtown Waco, big stage, and all the players and coaches were up there, and we had a ceremony with them. But then the parade route was so cool because it was not just Baylor people, but it was Waco. It was Waco, the Waco community in McLennan County coming out to celebrate this all together. So it was a really, real fun night to remember.
So I'm curious, when you do something like that, and I was fortunate enough to do a parade of the Dallas Cowboys when they won a couple of their Super Bowls, but that wasn't as a host of the deal. I was literally on the parade route. In fact, one time, people from Dallas Fort Worth will remember this. During the parade, there was so much confetti, and it got so tight that it was a very dangerous situation in downtown Dallas. And I was one of those reporters that was right there in the middle of all that and had to duck into a hotel lobby to get away from everything that was going on. A little different scenario, I'm sure, but one of the things that I'm curious about, because, you went from play-by-play guy. Now, I realize you broadcast an awful lot of sports, including, acrobatics and tumbling.
Yes.
Yeah. But to be able then to step from that and step up on that podium and host what you did with that, with the parade setting, that just had to have been one of the highlights.
It really was. And that's different than the play-by-play.
Yeah.
That. You're right about that. But it was so fun to be there. And how about this? They let Pat and I walk in the parade, too. Some of the guys were in cars. Some were walking. The coaches were walking. So my wife, Terry, and I walked in the parade, which was really cool. How often do you have a chance to do that? And we were sort of up near the front, so we could get up there and then be on stage when everybody else came in and make some announcements of, here's so-and-so arriving and all that. But it was really fun. I mean, it was just one big pep rally, and it was so fun to be a part of.
Okay, now you've been part of other cool moments outside of the basketball moment that we've talked about. I want to take you to this one and tell us what's up with you and the Gaines.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, our friend the Gaines. They are obviously here in Waco, and they are great. Chip is a goofball. What you see on TV is pretty much him. Joanna, I would say, it doesn't look for the spotlight. She handles it well when the spotlight's on her, but she would much prefer, I think, Chip being in the spotlight, and he does that very well also. So that picture, that's my wife Terry on the right. This was a dinner we had at their house, kind of on the grounds at their house a few years ago. And it was very fun. It was, I think it was our Bear Foundation Champions Club, championship level folks in the Bear Foundation. And we did a Q&A. I was up on stage and did a Q&A with Chip and Joe. And Brian, kicking myself, have been ever since. I didn't get that recorded. There were some guys there that set up the speakers and the audio and everything. And all I had to do was say, hey, can you record this? And I didn't do it. So I don't have that recorded. So hopefully there'll be another chance somewhere down the road with Chip and Joe. But they're fun to see. They're great Baylor supporters, and it's really fun when they show up at games. I mean, it's like the royalty has come to a Baylor game when they show up.
No doubt, and that's one of the great things about being in this business in play-by-play and spreading the word of the universities that we are associated with. You do get some individuals that will come into the booth, or that you have the opportunity in an event like you just mentioned with the Gaines. By the way, for those that aren't followers of it, Fixer Upper and Magnolia, right? Okay. Those are the programs and the elements that the Chip and Joanna Gaines are a part of. But anyway, so I think in our booth, Pat Green has been, one of the big names, of course, a Red Raider. We've had a few.
Who's a Waco guy, by the way. He's a Red Raider, but he's a Waco guy. Yeah,
that's correct. And then, when we would have the games in College Station with the Aggies, George Bush would regularly be on the sidelines. So the opportunity to, rub shoulders a little bit there was always fun. And it is part of what we do. You get a chance to see a few people that are a little higher notoriety than you and I.
That's fun. So let me turn the tables. What's the greatest kind of impromptu interview like that you've had a chance to do?
Well, it actually didn't come in the booth. It came in the my television days when I was sent to the broadcast of the opening day of the Ranger games. And at that time, the managing partner was George W. Bush.
Right.
The opportunity to literally stand in front of the box right there and interview him right before he ran for governor. And there was a lot of, rumor out at the time that he was going to run for governor. And so the opportunity to actually be the first one at that time to ask him the question live on television. So we hear you're going to be running for governor. And he had that, how he has that smirk sometimes. And he gave me that little smirk look and he goes, good try. Good try.
Nice.
So that was about
political reporter there.
Yeah, exactly. How about you?
Kind of very similar. Is about that same time, George W. Bush was Grand Marshal of a Baylor homecoming parade. And then he was at the game. And I remember going up to the president's suite and I said, hey, is there any way we could get him to come on with us at halftime? And they said, I don't know, we'll ask. And sure enough, he shows up and we have him on at halftime. And that was fun. And the wildest one for me really was a basketball tournament in Charleston, South Carolina. And Bill Murray was there. Bill Murray splits his time between Charleston and Los Angeles. And he's part owner of the minor league baseball team in Charleston, South Carolina. So St. John's was in this tournament. He knew Steve Lavin from his days at UCLA, and he was at these games. And walked down to him and said, hey, we'd love to have you on at halftime. What do you think? he says, I don't know, ESPN said maybe, and I said, no problem, no problem. If you can, come on down. We'd love to have you on. He comes down, and he was great. I mean, he was on. Let me say that at halftime with us. So that
That's
was really
awesome.
fun. That's kind of top of the list.
So, and talking about George W. a moment ago, I do have to share this, and I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know that we would go here, and so I don't have it to flash on the screen, but hopefully this will come up again at some point. But since I've been doing the broadcast at Texas Tech, there was an article in the Dallas Morning News one time that I was fortunate enough to be highlighted as, just doing, I think it was called um, Hot on Air or something like that. I think Barry Horn put it together with the Dallas Morning
Oh
News.
yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah. So anyway, it appeared in the Dallas Morning News, and 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail in a Manila envelope, 8.5 by 11, the White House. And I was like, oh my
Wow.
gosh, what is this? And
Yeah,
so I was very careful opening it because I thought, if this is something really cool, I don't want to tear up the envelope, right?
right.
So I barely slice it open, slide out the letter that's inside, and it was a letter from George W. Bush, and he was congratulating me for doing what I love with the university that I care so much about. It was just a moment of wow. Have no
That's
idea,
great.
where it came from. I mean, obviously, he read the article, but
Yeah,
it was just, one of those moments, like you say, that
isn't that great?
yeah, you just never know who you're reaching and who you're touching, who's listening, who's paying attention, that kind of thing. It's a lot of fun.
Man, that's cool. Well, he
Yeah.
and Laura were at some Baylor basketball games, through the years. When they had the place in Crawford, they would come to Baylor basketball games every once in a while, and so we would get them there. And there's always security around. But at one point, me and a couple other guys in athletic communications, we kind of stalked him in the hallway and got a great picture that's in my office
That's
with
great.
George W. So those are fun memories. I have great respect for people that have been in that position. I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
unbelievable to cross paths with them is really cool.
Well, you mentioned a moment ago family, and I think that's something that I'd love to kind of close with you because I know you are a terrific family man. I've had the great fortune over the years to have two of my kids. I'm going to show you the first one, Bennett, who went to Texas Tech. And while he was there, he was my spotter for 5 years,
Nice.
which was
Yeah.
just fantastic. And then you and I meet up each year in our games. It used to be at AT&T Stadium, and it was the first opportunity to bring another generation. This is my youngest son, Cooper, who
Yeah.
did spotting for me in that game. I believe you met him.
I did meet him. Yeah, I remember that.
And
Isn't that a
I'd love,
great?
it is great. And I just love to hear your remarks on how you've been able to share some of the things you've done with your family.
Yeah, and it's really special. Like going back to the national championship, the whole thing was in Indianapolis, and so there was limited travel. We were kind of hunkered down at the Westin in Indianapolis, and my wife was with me the final 2 weekends of the tournament, so she was there the whole time. My oldest daughter Megan, her husband Ty, is on staff for Baylor basketball, so he was with the team in the bubble. So we were kind of helping her with her two boys, our two of our grandsons. We were helping her. We got two connecting rooms at the Westin, and it was kind of it was very fun to be there and experience all that with them. And by the weekend of the Final Four, my other daughter Maddie and her husband Art, they're not going to miss that. They're both Baylor grads, and they were in Indianapolis, so they were with us. And then by the that same weekend, my son MJ and his girlfriend Caroline, they came to Indianapolis. So we were all together in this kind of two-room suite, if you will, two
That's
adjoining
awesome.
rooms. And that really made it even more special. What happened on the floor was so great. And, I'm so happy for Coach Drew and the entire staff and the
Yeah.
team. But then for me personally, to be able to celebrate that and enjoy that with my family, that just really put the cherry on top.
Yeah, it really does make a difference, doesn't it, when you can share that with family. I didn't mention my daughter Mallory, who a UT
Better.
graduate. UT graduate. Um, so when I talk to Craig Way on our program here,
Yeah.
I will be showing some images and such of her and bringing up a story of that. But again, it is all part of everybody, kind of shares in what the excitement is. My other daughter, Haley, and my wife, Lane, they're all a part of, when I come back from a game, they always are like, okay, so what happened? We listened,
Yeah.
which is always fun to hear, that the family actually listens.
That is a plus.
Isn't that a
Yeah,
bonus?
absolutely
So,
it is.
okay,
And
let me
it's
just ask
fun
you
to
a couple.
share.
Let me ask you a couple quick hits, and then we'll head out the
Okay.
door. Um,
Okay.
favorite sport to call?
Uh, I get asked that a lot, and tell me if you agree. I like whatever's in season. When we're in football season and it's the great crowd at McLean Stadium, and Baylor football, there's just nothing better than that, the pageantry of college football. And then I'm fortunate I get to move right into basketball. In fact, there's
Yeah,
an overlap in November and December, an overlap of the two. And I grew up in Kentucky, and so I've always, had a great admiration for college basketball. But then I get to basketball, and especially working with Coach Drew as long as we have, I just love college basketball, and I think there's nothing better than that. And then when the basketball season ends, and this year it didn't end until April 5th, which was great. And then I get to do some other sports outdoors, some baseball and
yeah,
softball and
yeah.
even volleyball over the course of the winter, and acrobatics and tumbling, things like that on our third tier television broadcast. And baseball and softball are fun, especially baseball. It's just a different broadcast when you can,
Yeah,
tell stories and, call pitches in between stories. And I
sure.
love that as well. Played baseball in high school. So I could not pick one. I really am blessed to be able to go from sport to sport and season to season, and really love, kind of contributing where I can to any and all of those.
So you mentioned the third tier games. I used to do the third tier television games,
Yep.
basketball for Tech when Bob Knight owned the network then, um, and baseball in my past with the Beaumont Golden Gators when
Yep.
they were in the minor league. So I know exactly what you're talking about in that, and I do miss switching from sport to sport. I kind of lost that opportunity. I live in Dallas, of course, and Tech in Lubbock. The opportunity to travel back and forth, it just became too much. But I will say this: I have never called acrobatics and tumbling, so I'm curious what was the top call on the acrobatics and tumbling?
Here's the key, Brian, and you'll appreciate this. Get a color analyst that knows what she's talking about, and we have that. And we have done it. The national championships here, we've done that, and
Nice.
done some during the regular season. And I tell the person I'm working with, hey, you're the expert here. You talk as much as you can, as
Sure.
much as you want to, and I'll talk as little as I can, and try not to say anything stupid. So having a good analyst, especially in that sport, acrobatics and tumbling, is really, really key.
Yeah, and so I was going to let you know my most random call was a
Yeah.
darts competition. I've done shooting before.
Nice.
I've done archery before. This was for an ESPN, like back in the day when they had, back end channels that they were just trying to fill
Right.
content for. I had the opportunity to do that. And darts that was pretty exciting. You can just
How
imagine
about
trying to
that?
trying to
You
build the
got me there.
excitement. I didn't scream.
Yeah.
I didn't scream. Bullseye, Red Raiders on that one, but I guess I could have,
That's the
right?
call, right?
All right.
That's
John,
great.
listen, I really appreciate the opportunity to have you on the show, and hey, great blessings to you, and thank you for all that you do for Baylor and sports in general.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks. And it's great to be on with you. I enjoy watching future episodes here. I enjoyed the one with Steve Pitts, and really honored to be on with you, Brian. I appreciate you, and we've known each other for a long, long time. So thanks for having me on, and I do appreciate it, and hope to see you again soon.
All right, John. Thank you much for that, and that'll do it for this episode of Broadcast Booth. Be sure to join us again, and as we've told you before, there are several ways for you to be able to contact us or follow us, and that is on your screen now as we wrap things up here with episode 2, John Morris of Baylor Athletics. Talk to you next time.